I ruined my perfect family. I ruined my perfect family after my husband caught me with my lover and ended up in jail for assault. Now 7 years later he's out and I'm all alone, and my kids hate me. I'm selfish. At least that's what I tell myself almost every night when the house is quiet. My children aren't with me, my ex-husband hates me, and he has every reason to. My family is broken and I've never stopped hating myself for what I did. My selfish act happened in 2015. I had just turned 39, and I'll admit I had started to take my husband for granted. He told me I was beautiful every day, he always wanted to be close, he cared for me and treated me as his equal. He never put me on a pedestal, never treated me like a queen or princess. I was his partner. At that point we had been married for 20 years. High school sweethearts, best friends, each other's first and only. It felt right. My family adored him. My brother looked up to him and my ex helped him through many rough patches. My ex was the kind of man people turned to in times of trouble, and he helped. He was a good man. Over the years I gave him 2 strong-willed sons. They were 18 and 16 at the time. We also had twin princesses, 13 years old. I had gained weight and felt insecure, but he never stopped telling me I was beautiful. We rarely argued, we always talked things through. When we did fight it was usually about intimacy. Or rather, the lack of it, because of me. And because of things I wouldn't do in bed. It wasn't that I didn't want to do them, I just wasn't in the mood. And he understood. When I turned 39, my birthday marked the birth of a new me. I spent a whole year going to the gym doing yoga and Pilates. I went from 82 kilos down to 61. It was an amazing transformation for me. I'd been chubby since childhood, so having a lean, fit body was completely new to me. My ex also went to the gym, though not as regularly, but he dropped from 118 to 102 kilos and started getting in shape. He couldn't keep his hands off me, but for some reason I still wasn't in the mood. It's not like he didn't try. We went on dinner dates, danced, walked regularly, he always helped around the house, and I saw in his eyes just how much he loved and desired me. After 20 years together he still looked at me with lust. I think any woman would dream of that. But mentally I just wasn't there. I even wondered if it was early menopause. We were intimate maybe 2-3 times a month and that was enough for me. But he wanted more. And despite all his efforts I couldn't force myself to want it. He suggested couples therapy but I said no. That's when my selfishness took over. Just days after my birthday, a new manager started at our office. He was a bit younger, handsome, and for some reason he showed interest in me. First I ignored him. Then the ignoring turned into casual chats. Then he started flirting. I showed him my wedding ring. But after 2 months of constant flirting I started flirting back. I began sharing personal things with him and I found myself thinking about him more and more. It was an emotional affair, I see that now. But at the time it felt intoxicating. My ex started noticing something was off. We had a heated argument about it and I truly believe it began the moment he tried to kiss me and I instinctively flinched. It wasn't because of him, I was thinking about the other man. I was disgusted by the whole situation. At least that's how I explain it to myself. A week later I asked the manager to meet me at a cafe so we could talk. I planned to tell him to leave me alone, that I couldn't do it anymore. But before I could say anything he kissed me and my mind went blank. That's how our 6-month affair started. During that time I did with him everything my husband had ever asked for. I was more passionate, more open, always in the mood. I think it was because everything was new and exciting. My husband and I still had sex during that time, but less and less. I started pushing him away, nitpicking, even insulting him. I'm ashamed of how I treated him. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until my brother came to see me and told me my husband had opened up to him about being depressed. He said my husband was thinking of divorce because he felt I no longer loved him, and he was starting to fall out of love with me. That sobered me up. I ended the affair immediately, quit my job, and told myself I'd do anything to make my husband feel loved and wanted again. I wanted to fix everything. I was going to be a better wife. But my lover showed up at my house with a box of my things from work as I had asked him to mail them. We talked. He wanted to know what he had done wrong and I told him I had to save my marriage. I asked him to leave. He begged me, asked for one last time, and like a fool I agreed. We went to the guest room and started. I don't know how long it lasted, but at some point I felt his body jerk violently backward, followed by a loud bang. I sat up and saw my ex-husband staring at me. My lover was on the floor and there was a huge hole in the wall. I tried to say something to my husband, but his eyes were bloodshot, tears were streaming down his face and his lips were trembling. I saw how deeply he was hurting and felt disgusted with myself. I watched as my lover tried to get up and leave. My husband looked at him and the lover said something like, "Let's not make this worse. Just breathe." My husband attacked him. I screamed, cried, begged my husband to stop, and in desperation I jumped on his back. He threw me off with force. Everything became blurry, the sounds muffled. When I came to, my husband was sitting next to the beaten man holding a phone. All I could do was stare at my lover's swollen face and the blood and teeth scattered across the floor near him. Then there was a loud knock at the door. I watched as my ex-husband turned on the speakerphone, slowly placed the phone on the ground, dropped to his knees and put his hands behind his head. The door opened, police came in, cuffed him, and a few minutes later paramedics arrived. I later learned he was the one who called 911. Everything collapsed in an instant. At the hospital, my father didn't say a word to me. He just looked at me with shame and disgust. My brother yelled at me, his voice shaking with pain and rage. He asked how I could do this to my husband. My mother tried to comfort me, saying things would be okay, and my father yelled at her. My husband's family was furious. His sisters threatened me and his parents looked at me like they wished me dead. I tried to speak to my children but they refused. My sons couldn't even look at me. My lover had serious injuries and needed facial reconstructive surgery. My ex-husband had literally smashed his face. At the hospital, a woman stormed into my room and attacked me. My brother pulled her away. It turned out she was my lover's wife. I had no idea he was married. He never wore a ring or mentioned a wife. That made me feel even more disgusted with myself. Before the trial, my sons stayed with their paternal grandparents, and my twin daughters completely cut me off. My ex-husband didn't want to see me either. I tried to visit him in jail but was denied. My brother pulled some strings to get my ex moved to a correctional facility where he worked so he could look after him. When I asked my brother to pass a message to my ex, he told me to go to hell. At the trial, I saw my husband for the first time in months. He looked at me with such hatred, it was a kind of pain I never thought possible. Even during our worst fights, he had always looked at me with some kind of love. But that day all I saw was hatred. I had to run out of the courtroom to cry in the bathroom. With each day, the trial became harder to endure. I had to describe my affair in detail in front of everyone. When I gave the timeline, my ex looked like he'd been punched in the face. My father stood up and walked out of the courtroom. During my ex-husband's testimony, I found out he had come home that day to surprise me. He brought lunch and had planned a romantic weekend in the Catskills. He had arranged the perfect getaway for the two of us, but instead he found me with my lover and snapped. He said when the lover told him to step aside, he lost control and beat him, only stopping when he threw me off. Then he immediately called 911. In court, we listened to the recording. We could hear the pain in his voice, the sobbing as he followed the dispatcher's instructions. It was unbearable. My lover couldn't testify due to being heavily medicated, so the court was shown photos of his injuries. I felt sick, because I was the reason behind all of it. My ex-husband shattered his orbital bone with his cheekbone and nearly destroyed his jaw. He was charged with third-degree felony assault and sentenced to 7 years in prison. My sons screamed in protest. My daughters and his family let out a cry that still haunts me in my nightmares. The first 3 months after the trial were pure torture. My lover's wife, who had already filed for divorce, sued me for alienation of affection. My ex-husband filed for divorce. My eldest son moved out, the younger barely left his room, and my twin daughters started to rebel. My ex-sisters-in-law attacked me in a store. His mother spat in my face when I tried to apologize. My father and brother refused to speak to me. Eventually, I had to find a new job. Money was tight and I burned through most of our savings. I was blacklisted in my field. The scandal was too big for the accounting firm I worked at. So I started working in retail and doing taxes during tax season. I almost lost the house. My ex-husband forbade me from visiting him and all my letters came back unopened. Tears in my soul had become a daily ritual. My parents almost divorced because my mom kept defending me. My brother still ignored me, and even my old high school friends had split into 2 camps. Soon I started thinking about ending it all, or just packing up and disappearing. The guilt was unbearable. At some point I started seeing a therapist. She didn't sugarcoat anything, she told me I had simply gotten too used to my husband. She said I stopped seeing him as my partner and started treating him like a roommate with benefits. And she was right. That's exactly what had happened. I took him for granted. He saw me as his wife, the mother of his children, the woman he loved and desired. I saw him as just a life companion. Almost a year passed in silence between me and my kids. When I made dinner, they would grab their plates and head to their rooms without even looking at me. I had several emotional breakdowns, begging them to say anything to me, but I was met with silence. My brother got married and didn't even invite me to the wedding. My kids were there though. I kept trying to visit my ex-husband, hoping he would add me to his visitor list, but I was always denied. My letters kept getting sent back. It pushed me into a deep depression, and I knew I deserved it. Then one day, out of the blue, my brother showed up. I was shocked. Despite everything, I was glad to see him. It was the first time he came to my home since the trial. But he didn't come to talk, he came to yell at me. He said my ex-husband had been stabbed in prison. An inmate had been harassing him, and it ended with my ex getting stabbed in the stomach, and the attacker getting his spine broken. My brother screamed, "This is your fault," and stormed out. I cried for days. He was right. It was my fault. I tried to visit my ex in the hospital, but again, I wasn't allowed in. Over the next 4 years, I kept writing letters begging to talk to him, but they all came back unopened. Thankfully, our children kept visiting their dad. Through them, I found out that after the stabbing, my brother had pushed to get him transferred to a higher security facility. In time, my oldest son enrolled at the same college his father went to, even chose the same major. He only kept in touch with his siblings, not with me. He never came home for the holidays, only visited his grandparents. My second son followed the same path, same college, same major, and also refused to speak to me. My twin daughters were harsh with me, but they visited their dad every week, and I could see how much better they were doing because of it. When they started to rebel, their uncle kept them in line. My brother and I still barely spoke. When he had his first child, I tried to visit his wife in the hospital, but I was asked to leave. My mom kept me updated about their lives. My dad still ignored me. Then, in early May this year, I noticed my kids were suddenly happier. My sons came home. I didn't know why, and honestly, I didn't care. They were home. For 4 months, they stayed close, and I tried to show them how sorry I was. Mostly they ignored me. But slowly they started talking to me. And that made me happy. I could finally ask about their lives again. My oldest had been dating the same girl for over a year. My second son was on the college track team. Even my daughters began speaking to me again. Seeing them smile, sitting at the dinner table together, I hated myself even more for what I had done. I missed them so much. By the end of August, I was preparing for my daughter's senior year, which happened to start on their 18th birthday. I excitedly told them about the party I was planning. Without hesitation, one of them asked if we could reschedule the celebration. I was confused. I thought we were finally healing. Asked why. One of them said, "Because Dad is throwing us a party. And I don't want you around him." Those words shattered me. I asked when their dad got out of prison, and they told me it happened in late April. He had been released early for good behavior. I broke down crying. Learning he was free crushed me even more. They had been spending more time at home, and seemed so happy because their father was back in their lives. It wasn't that they had forgiven me, it was that he had come back. I asked where he was living. They told me he was staying at my brother's house. I tried to call him. I just needed to talk. But he refused. So, I went to my brother's place, holding all the letters he had returned over the years. I saw him through a crack in the door. I called his name, but my brother asked me to leave. I handed him the letters and walked to my car. As I got to the driveway, I heard his voice. I turned and saw my ex-husband walking toward me. I broke into tears and rushed to hug him, but he held out the letters instead. "You forgot these," he said coldly, and I stood there sobbing as he walked away. I begged him, pleaded with him just to talk to me, but he went back inside. My kids stood in the doorway watching me. There was no love in their eyes. That's when I realized they were only tolerating me. But I still want to fix this. I want to tell them how selfish I was. I want to tell him how much I missed him and how sorry I am for destroying what we had. I found out from my mom that my ex-lover's former wife started visiting my ex-husband 2 years ago and still visits him regularly. Honestly, I don't care. I just want him to forgive me. I want him to talk to me. I want him to look at me the way he used to. I want my kids back. I want my family back. but I know I don't deserve it. Even if by some miracle we were together again, things would never be the same. I was selfish. And I would give anything to turn back time.